Canada is witnessing a sweeping economic boycott of U.S. products, streaming services, and tourism. Could this boycott cost thousands of American jobs and reshape cross-border relations forever? Since early February 2025, over 85% of Canadians are avoiding American goods, 48% replacing as many as possible, and 37% when price and quality match, according to an Angus Reid survey. Quebec now labels U.S. products, bans American alcohol in government stores, and even posts Made in Canada tags alongside warnings. This surge in anti-U.S. sentiment isn't just a minor dip. Brown-Forman's CEO called the removal of Jack Daniel's worse than tariffs, noting Canada accounts for 1% of its sales, yet shelf space was cleared regardless. The U.S. Travel Association warns even a 10% drop in Canadian visits could cost 140,000 U.S. jobs and $2.1 billion in spending. Farmers and food exporters may see a prolonged downturn in demand north of the border. Fast food staples, McDonald's, Starbucks, KFC, and e-commerce giant Amazon Canada are feeling the pinch. A Research Corporate poll shows 78% plan to buy more Canadian, 59% will boycott U.S. products, and 41% are reducing Amazon usage. McDonald's U.S. comparable sales fell 0.7% in Q2, while global sales slid 1%, its first global decline since 2020. With 41% of Canadians reducing Amazon usage, U.S. e-commerce jobs, from warehousing in Ohio to local courier positions, face layoffs. Lower retail revenue also risks reducing small business partnerships and service contracts tied to these chains, from packaging to local logistics. In Quebec, roughly 36% of residents have canceled or plan to cancel subscriptions to Netflix, Disney Plus, or Spotify. Social posts like "I love Canada more than I love Spotify" are trending. Quebec's 36% cancellation rate includes major platforms like Netflix and Disney Plus, hitting U.S. content planners hard. Meanwhile, North American cord-cutting trends already show 27% planning to drop traditional services by Q2 2023. Added pressures could force U.S. studios to scale back production, stall series renewals, and impact thousands of U.S.-based writers, crew, and performers reliant on Canadian subscriber revenue. Canada, U.S. cross-border. Bookings dropped 71 to 76% in March 2025 compared to 2024. Airlines cut 320,000 seats on Canada routes. Duty-free shops report 40 to 50% slump from January to April. Some outlets say business has plunged 80%, prompting staff layoffs. Financial Times warns Florida, Arizona, and Nevada may lose 9 to 12 billion US dollars. February border crossings fell 23%, and air travel bookings dropped 71 to 76% in March 2025. The U.S. Travel Association forecasts 140,000 job losses and $2.1 billion in spending cuts, from just a 10% decline. Regions like Florida rely heavily on Canadian tourism. Florida saw 3.3 million Canadian visitors in 2024, contributing $600 million to Fort Lauderdale alone. Cuts in airline schedules and duty-free layoffs are rippling through local economies. The world's largest gas field has been bombed. Refineries have gone offline. As the Israel-Iran conflict strikes at the heart of global energy infrastructure, what happens if the Strait of Hormuz is closed? On June 13th, Israel initiated Operation Rising Lion, a large-scale airstrike involving more than 200 fighter jets, targeting high-level IRGC military commanders and nuclear facilities in Iran. Within the first 15 minutes, at least 20 senior IRGC generals and 6 nuclear scientists were killed, including General Hussein Salami, once considered the successor to Qasem Soleimani. Israel stated the strikes were carefully executed, with precision targeting down to individual apartments, to minimize civilian casualties. Security risks could rise sharply if the U.S. becomes directly involved. Any disruption to oil flows in the region would push up gasoline and commodity prices, adding pressure to U.S. households and the global economy. Starting June 16th, Iran launched a massive barrage of ballistic missiles and drones against multiple Israeli targets, including the Ministry of Defense, Mossad headquarters, and residential areas in Tel Aviv and Haifa. The initial wave included over 400 missiles and hundreds of drones, designed to overwhelm Israel's missile defense systems, Iron Dome, Patriot, and THAAD. At least 24 people were killed and more than 500 injured in Israel, while Iran reported 224 deaths, mostly civilians. Despite Iron Dome intercepting around 90% of incoming threats, several projectiles broke through, causing damage to infrastructure and residential zones. Israel has vowed to escalate its counterstrikes against Iranian energy and financial assets if civilian areas continue to be targeted. Energy infrastructure in both countries has already been hit, and the resulting supply shocks could significantly drive up global oil prices and consumer costs worldwide. On June 14th to 15th, 3 drones were launched at Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq, home to U.S. troops, shortly after American forces assisted Israel in Operation Rising Lion. All drones were intercepted, and no casualties or major damage were reported. The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad evacuated most staff as a precaution. Pro-Iranian groups such as Kataib Hezbollah may continue attacks if U.S. involvement deepens. Any American casualties could serve as a trigger for direct military engagement, carrying high human and financial costs. Broader U.S. military involvement would likely raise defense spending, potentially increasing taxes or widening the fiscal deficit, costs that would ripple through public services and everyday life. Israeli airstrikes targeted South Pars, the world's largest gas field, jointly operated by Iran and Qatar, disrupting around 80% of Iran's daily gas output and halting production of 700,000 barrels of condensate per day. In response, Iran fired missiles at the Haifa refinery in Israel, killing 3 workers and causing a full shutdown due to power and steam system failure. In addition, 2 of Israel's 3 key offshore gas fields, Leviathan and Karish, have been temporarily closed, cutting domestic supply and halting exports to Egypt and Jordan. These disruptions threaten to undermine regional energy stability, trigger price surges, and destabilize both local economies and broader global markets. Major corporate shakeups and hefty tariffs are rattling U.S. industrial heartlands and consumer prices alike. Will thousands of job cuts and soaring steel prices push American families to the edge of a new economic crisis? General Electric will slash 12,000 jobs in its energy division worldwide. Workers, particularly in the Midwest and Northeast, face sudden layoffs, affecting families and local businesses. Tax revenues shrink, while social support costs rise, straining community services. These cuts hit regions already coping with industrial decline. Families lose income. Fewer local taxes lead to underfunded schools and public services. Communities must rely on unemployment and aid programs, stretching already limited resources. In towns where GE was a cornerstone employer, real estate values are dropping, and small businesses are closing due to reduced foot traffic and consumer spending. Entire local economies face cascading effects from this workforce reduction, with no quick path to recovery. The U.S. doubled steel and aluminum tariffs to 50%, effective June 4th. Domestic aluminum prices jumped by 54% Midwest premium, and hot-rolled coil steel climbed 7.4%. Canned food prices may rise 9 to 15%, or by 30 cents per can. Consumers face higher prices for cars, appliances, canned goods, and construction materials. Low and middle-income families will feel the pinch most during grocery shopping and household spending. Communities relying on manufacturing may bar business expansion or relocation due to cost uncertainty. Families planning home repairs or vehicle purchases are now postponing them. Construction jobs are being reevaluated or cut. Small manufacturers warn that profit margins are evaporating, forcing potential layoffs or even closures in already vulnerable rural regions. Tariffs will cost the typical household $3,800 a year. Car prices could increase by $2,000 to $4,000 per vehicle, squeezing middle-class budgets and diverting spending from other essentials. The US ISM manufacturing PMI fell to 48.5 in May, marking a third consecutive month of contraction. Companies like GM delayed investor briefings, and UPS plans to cut 20,000 jobs, citing tariff-driven cost pressures. Hiring freezes and layoffs make job markets unpredictable. Families delaying purchases weaken local economies. Consumer confidence drops, harming small businesses and eroding the social fabric of manufacturing towns. Experts caution that tariffs alone cannot revive U.S. industry. They urge long-term strategies, retraining workers, supporting innovation, and sustainable investment. GE and others are shifting production abroad, seeking stable costs and business climates. When companies leave, towns lose jobs, tax dollars, and identity. Workers without new skills face unemployment. Without a clear industrial roadmap, communities struggle to attract new firms or retrain displaced employees. International visits to the U.S. have plunged, triggering billions in economic losses and warning signs for the summer season. Could easing entry rules and marketing campaigns reverse the trend? International arrivals to the U.S. dropped 14% in March 2025 compared to March 2024. Canada down 26% via land and 14% via air. Western Europe down 17%. South America down 10%. This contraction follows tougher visa screenings and stricter border enforcement. This slump hits U.S. tourism businesses hard, especially in New York, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, leading to reduced bookings in hotels, restaurants, car rentals, and theme parks. Seasonal layoffs and slower summer hiring are already being felt in local economies that rely on foreign visitors. Lower foot traffic also means shops and small businesses on main streets struggle to meet monthly targets. And local tour operators may need to cut hours or staff. Some communities, particularly those reliant on tourism, are experiencing a downturn in neighborhood events, festivals, and local sponsorships, further reducing the vibrancy of public life. Travel advisories from Germany, Japan, and Australia now reference invasive phone checks, detailed interviews, and even deportation risks, raising alarm among potential tourists. Meanwhile, cross-border traffic from Canada has dropped between 20 and 35%, and Canadian airlines have trimmed routes due to sagging demand. Fear of intrusive border measures reduces international tourism, infrastructure usage, and revenue. U.S. service and transport workers face fewer shifts. Communities near border crossings see slower commercial activity. Businesses dependent on tourism. Forecasting face revenue and staffing uncertainty. Local restaurants and taxi drivers, who rely heavily on the spending of international guests, are seeing fewer tips and longer idle hours. Cultural venues and event organizers, hoping for a post-pandemic revival, now contend with fewer bookings and less diverse audiences. limiting community engagement and potential growth. The World Travel and Tourism Council projects a $12.5 billion drop in international visitor spending in 2025, from $181 billion in 2024 to just under $169 billion. Oxford Economics forecasts an 8.7% decline in arrivals, translating to around $8.5 billion in lost tourism revenue. Tourism Economics warns that Canadian travel could cut $2 to $6 billion and about 14,000 U.S. jobs. Local tax revenue and public service funding suffer as tourism-generated income shrinks. School budgets, road maintenance, and public transportation systems may face cutbacks or tax hikes to compensate. Job losses in tourism sectors ripple into related industries like retail and hospitality. States like California and Florida, along with major cities, have launched marketing campaigns promoting a welcoming U.S. image and travel discounts. Airlines and hotels are offering bundled deals to attract early summer bookings. While still emerging, these initiatives aim to stem the downturn. If successful, these efforts could fuel summer travel, helping tourism-dependent regions rebound in jobs and revenue. If delayed or weak, dependence on summer tourism may see continued unemployment, prompting budget shortfalls and possible reductions in public services. Canada is fast becoming the new trade favorite across Asia, Europe, and beyond. While U.S. tariffs are reshaping retail and jobs at home, is America losing its edge without even noticing? While the U.S. imposes tariffs as high as 50% on steel, aluminum, and cars, Canada has quietly signed new trade pacts with Asia, Latin America, the EU, and India. Its latest agreement with Indonesia slashes 90% of bilateral tariffs, boosting sectors like electronics, minerals, AI, and advanced manufacturing. Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy, backed by a $2.3 billion initiative, is rapidly expanding its presence in the region and attracting new investment. As Canada strengthens its global partnerships, the U.S. risks losing key trade leadership. This could mean fewer job opportunities, less investment, and higher consumer prices as American influence in global markets wanes. A sharp 125% tariff on goods from China has hit U.S. retailers hard. Walmart, Target, and Dollar Tree have raised prices on essentials like electronics, toys, coffee, and flowers. According to Yale's Budget Lab, American families now spend an extra $4,900 per year just to maintain their standard of living due to rising costs from tariffs. Walmart appealed to the White House for relief, but was denied. Meanwhile, Amazon Canada is thriving with lower prices and faster delivery to U.S. shoppers. Consumers face rising costs and product shortages, while retail workers deal with job cuts. As cross-border shopping from Canada increases, domestic distribution networks face serious disruption. Canada is emerging as a central player in the global supply chain through new deals with the EU, Japan, Australia, and India. Ottawa-based corporations have voiced concerns over U.S. isolationism, stating, "We cannot let the U.S. self-destruct and drag us down." Canada is also ramping up capabilities in battery metals, rare earth minerals, and clean energy, drawing manufacturing orders and capital away from the U.S. High-tech job growth is shifting northward. American workers in steel, automotive, and battery sectors face job insecurity, while U.S. firms increasingly rely on imports from Canada, rather than serving foreign markets directly. Analysts warn that unless U.S. trade policy changes course, the economy could face a triple threat: high prices, supply shortages, and rising unemployment. Canada's growing web of trade alliances is creating a parallel system that excludes the U.S., attracting international businesses seeking stability and predictability. Workers, small businesses, and the middle class are bearing the costs of current trade strategies. Without adjustments, America could fall behind as global commerce evolves without it. Recent U.S. tariffs on aluminum and steel imports are prompting major companies to reconsider their manufacturing strategies. How will these shifts impact American consumers and workers? Coca-Cola is grappling with increased aluminum prices due to the U.S. doubling tariffs on imported aluminum to 50%, effective June 4, 2025. The beverage giant, which sources aluminum for its cans from Canada, is exploring alternatives like shifting more products to plastic bottles to mitigate costs. The increased production costs may lead to higher prices for canned beverages in the U.S., affecting consumers who favor affordable drink options. This price hike could disproportionately impact lower-income households that rely on budget-friendly beverages. Middle-aged Americans, who often juggle family expenses and healthcare costs, may feel the squeeze more acutely as daily essentials become less affordable. General Motors is facing challenges due to the 25% tariff on imported vehicles from Canada, leading to increased production costs. In response, GM announced the elimination of one shift at its Oshawa, Ontario plant, resulting in approximately 700 job cuts. The reduction in Canadian production may lead GM to shift more manufacturing to the U.S., potentially creating jobs domestically. However, the overall industry faces uncertainty, and consumers might see vehicle prices rise by $800 to $3,000 due to increased material costs. Middle-aged factory workers, already coping with job insecurity and limited retraining opportunities, could be among the hardest hit by industry shifts and layoffs. Alcoa, a leading U.S. aluminum producer, anticipates a $90 million impact in the current quarter due to the 25% tariff on Canadian aluminum imports. With 70% of its aluminum production based in Canada, the company is evaluating options to mitigate these costs. The increased costs for Alcoa may trickle down to industries reliant on aluminum, such as automotive and construction, leading to higher prices for end products and potential job losses in sectors dependent on affordable aluminum supplies. Middle-aged workers in these downstream industries, many of whom have long tenures and fewer relocation options, may struggle to adapt to rising costs and reduced demand. Campbell's Soup is confronting higher packaging costs as aluminum tariffs drive up expenses for canned goods. The company is considering sourcing alternatives and may pass increased costs onto consumers. Price increases in canned goods could affect consumers seeking economical meal options, particularly impacting middle and low-income families who rely on such products for affordable nutrition. Middle-aged Americans managing both childcare and elder care responsibilities may find rising grocery bills especially burdensome. Tesla is experiencing a significant downturn in Quebec, Canada, with new vehicle registrations plummeting over 85% in Q1 2025 compared to the previous quarter. This decline coincides with the suspension of Canada's federal EV rebates for Tesla, amid trade tensions stemming from U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods. Reduced sales in Canada may lead Tesla to reevaluate its production and investment strategies, potentially affecting U.S. America's auto industry is facing an unprecedented challenge as new car inventories hit record highs and consumers walk away from new vehicles. With dealerships struggling and car prices soaring, could this crisis permanently change how Americans think about car ownership? As of May 2025, U.S. new vehicle inventory has surged to over 2.84 million units, with an average 80-day supply. For EVs, SUVs, and luxury models. It exceeds 100 days. Dealerships in Texas, Arizona, and Michigan are cutting staff, downsizing, or seeking foreign buyers, signaling a major industry shift. The sudden glut of unsold cars has left hundreds of thousands of dealership employees at risk of losing their jobs. Local communities are seeing a sharp drop in tax revenue and economic activity, putting public services and small businesses in jeopardy. For many towns that rely on auto sales as their economic lifeblood, this downturn means real hardship for families, workers, and local governments who are struggling to adapt to the new reality. In 2025, the average new pickup costs $54,000, up from $38,000 just 6 years ago. Auto loan rates now average nearly 10%, with some buyers paying 15 to 22% due to imperfect credit. A $24,000 loan on a $32,000 car can mean $650 monthly payments, more than many mortgages. As a result, Americans are keeping older vehicles, often with over 200,000 miles, to avoid unsustainable debt. With soaring prices and sky-high loan rates, millions of Americans are forced to drive aging, high-mileage cars. This trend brings more breakdowns, higher repair bills, and growing safety concerns. The stress of mounting financial pressure is eroding consumer confidence, especially among the middle class, who now feel shut out of the dream of new car ownership. Electric vehicles and luxury SUVs now comprise a growing share of the over 750,000 vehicles unsold for more than 100 days. Despite EV price cuts of up to 50%, buyers remain scarce. As they sit unused, batteries degrade, tires crack, and paint fades, turning them into liabilities for dealers and automakers. Major automakers like Ford, GM, and Stellantis have cut production by 35 to 40%, causing tens of thousands of layoffs. The rapid depreciation of new technology has shaken public trust in electric vehicles. Many Americans are now hesitant to embrace modern cars, fearing their investment will quickly lose value. The dream of a green automotive future feels more distant, while the risk of job loss in manufacturing communities has grown. As car makers cut orders, parts factories in Ohio, Michigan, and Tennessee are shutting down. Over 50,000 auto jobs have been lost in just 6 months, per Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal. The ripple effects reach banks, pension funds, credit unions, and school budgets. Entire communities, from teachers to grocery store owners, are being swept up in the crisis. As the auto industry's decline ripples through the local economy, small towns are losing their industrial identity and facing the prospect of long-term poverty. Job losses are undermining the stability of families and neighborhoods.